Hey guys, it's Tealus here. Welcome back to the beautiful Sanctum of Light underneath Light's Hope Chapel out in the Eastern Plaguelands. We are here for the final time taking a look at the last spec for Paladins in World of Warcraft Legion, that is the Protection Paladin. We've already gone through Holy and Retribution. If you would like to see those videos, you can check back through the timeline and see the changes that are coming to them in Legion. I held off for a very long time on all tank specs because I was really worried about them changing. They were very overpowered. However, as we reach the end of beta, it seems as though all changes are set in stone, and instead they will just mess with the PvE coefficients to kind of regulate its power in PvP. With that being said, this will be a two-video series looking at the changes to Protection Paladin in World of Warcraft Legion. The first video will be looking at the abilities changed, new, and removed to a Protection Paladin, and we will also be looking at the artifact weapon, which is one of the coolest shields that they have put in the game. The sword is just kind of like there, but the shield is really the cool option here. I say the sword is just kind of there because with how cool that these shields are, the one on Protection Paladins and the one on Protection Warriors, I feel as though they just like picked up a shield that was the first sword lying next to it and was like, well, you can use this one with it. However, the sword and the shield actually do go really well together, and one of my absolute favorite artifact weapons baseline in the game, so it's really cool. And we'll be looking at that at the end of this video. First part of this video will be abilities. The second part of this video will be the artifact weapon. In the next video, we'll be looking at the PvE and PvP talents. So, with all of that said, let's go ahead and look at the Protection Paladin. So, before we get into the changed, removed, and new abilities for Protection Paladin, I want to state, as I have at the beginning of all these tanking videos, of how things have kind of changed with tanks and the overall changes for Protection Paladin. Overall changes for Protection Paladin that you need to know is that Holy Power is gone. Completely gone. It is now only a resource that is used for Retribution Paladins. Basically, Paladins got the same treatment as Monks. Monks' Chi is only used for Windwalker Monks, the DPS spec, and now for Paladins, basically, Holy Power is only going to be used for the Retribution spec. The Protection Paladin, specifically, will be mostly geared towards a little bit of mana, but for the most part, they really won't pay attention to mana. They're going to be more just cooldown based. Everything they deal is going to be cooldown based, which is, it's one of the rare classes that's basically just cooldown based, and that is their main resource, is dealing with cooldowns. So, with that being said, as I've mentioned throughout these tanking videos, each one of the tanks has kind of their own specific theme. We've gone through Guardian Druids about having a massive health pool, being able to mitigate both physical and magical damage depending on the situation. We have Vengeance Demon Hunters that are all about lifesteal and a little bit of parry in there to keep themselves alive. We have the Protection Warrior, which is all about their shield. Shield wall, shield bash, you name it. Everything dealing with their shield to keep themselves alive. Protection Paladin is kind of a mixed bag of everything. And then on top of that, the main overlying theme of a Protection Paladin is using your power with the Holy Light to amplify your defensive abilities and make them stronger. They've taken just a little bit out of every spec, maybe from Druids to Protection Warriors to even Brewmaster Monks. They've taken small little bits out of each spec, little play styles, and added them all together into Protection Paladin. And then the overarching theme of a Protection Paladin is, hey, the Holy Light is your friend. It is your light of defense. Your abilities will be magnified by the Holy Light, and you will be able to self-heal yourself through the Holy Light. So, all in all, it's basically kind of the grab bag of everything. It's got a lot of focus on shield, but nowhere near as much as the Protection Warrior. And that's, like I said, it basically draws from all different tank specs into one, and then the main theme is using the Holy Light as a defender for you. With that being said, let's go ahead and look at the removed, changed, and new abilities, and through that you'll kind of start to see where the theme of a Protection Paladin fits in, and how it has changed. Overall, I would say it has not changed too much, but there are some significant changes in there to certain abilities. So, with that being said, you also have to account for the fact that Holy Power is gone, so we'll be changing things to kind of work around that. But anyways, with that being said, let's go into removed abilities. Removed abilities, there are a lot here for Protection Paladins, but a lot of them are abilities that, you know, really didn't need anymore. So, Blessing of Kings, Blessing of Might have been removed. Any type of raid buff in the game has been removed completely from all classes and specs. Basically, Blizzard felt that, well, I kind of feel the same way. Basically, there were too many raid buffs in the game. Like, there came a point in which, like, there were certain specs that were not being taken to raids, and so they were upset, and so they got their own raid buffs that they'd be taken to raids, which, you know, makes sense. You know, everyone wants to be usable in a raid, and so basically it became an oversaturation of raid-wide buffs, and then if you have such oversaturation, why not just get rid of them all? And so that's what they did, and I'm perfectly happy with not having to buff anyone anymore. When I go out into a battleground or anything like that, I don't have to deal with that anymore, which I think is awesome. So, Blessing of Kings, Blessing of Might removed. Do not worry. All other raid buffs are gone. Mark of the Wild, Arcane Brilliance, you name it, all gone. Cleanse, Holy. Cleanse has basically been removed. It is Holy only now. They replaced it, a teaser for new ability. It's now called Cleanse Toxins. It's basically a name change. They wanted to separate the fact that Cleanse as an ability can cleanse magical effects, whereas Cleanse Toxins can only cleanse, you know, your diseases and poisons, I think, if I remember correctly. We'll pull it up right here so I'm not a complete noob. Yeah, there we go. Poison and disease effects have been removed from it's to say that's what Cleanse Toxins is. So they basically wanted to differentiate the fact that these are actual two different abilities instead of just saying, oh, well, if you're a Protection Paladin, this Cleanse ability will actually only be able to do, won't be able to do magic, it'll only be able to do this much, which I think kind of makes sense. So, new ability T's, it's actually Cleanse Toxins, those are one of the three new ones, and then Cleanse as a, you know, ability to get rid of magic has been removed. It is only. Really, there's no change here except for the name, really. Hand of Salvation has been removed from the game. There is, I believe, a way to get it back as a PvP talent. I believe, if I'm incorrect. I'm sorry. Sorry, it's in the actual PvE talent tree. So we will get to that in the next video when we discuss PvP and PvE talents. But for the most part, Hand of Salvation is gone from the game. Crusader Strike is now wholly in ret only, so it actually has been removed from a Protection Paladin, which is kind of surprising, but it is gone. Divine Protection has been removed across for the entire game, actually. This one was kind of surprising to me, but I'm not really sure as to why they removed it from the game, but Divine Protection is now gone. Hammer Wrath has been removed. Anything that was an execute style ability, kill shot, you name it, has been removed. I think the only ones left are Shadow or Death, which even then it's not very execution-like. You have two charges of it for the most part. And then Execute. Blizzard wanted Execute to be just for Arms and Fury Warriors, and so that's where it remains. Holy Wrath has been removed. This was an AoE threat generator that is gone. So this is kind of concerning. Blizzard has been cutting down on AoE threat generation all over the place. So you're actually going to have to work on AoE threat generation. I do believe that Paladins are one of the better classes at AoE threat generation, but still, it's going to be more difficult than it has been in the past. So just take note of that. Righteous Fury has been removed. Just stay with me here. This was a useless buff, okay? There's no reason why a Paladin should have to have Righteous Fury on to generate threat when the other tanks didn't have to. They could just generate it through their damage. So Righteous Fury ends up being removed, ends up being a buff for Protection Paladins, because then they have to make sure that they have enough damage to, you know, cause enough threat to hold threat. So nothing wrong with Righteous Fury being removed. There's no point for it anymore. Seal of Insight and Seal of Righteousness have both been removed. All seals have been removed from the game. This is kind of disappointing that it's been removed, but seals were too much like stances, and stances have been removed from the game as well. Anything with an ability bar up above here that was some type of stance, Blood Presence, Frost Presence, defensive stance, Stance of the White Tiger, whatever it was, they're all gone. Stances are gone. The only class that really of which stance dancing was important was was warrior, and they gave that as a talent to arms if they liked that play style still. Otherwise, the only one that should be shape shifting, hint hint, in and out of any type of different stances should be a druid. And so that's what they wanted to do, is they're basically giving the theme of a druid back to a druid and getting rid of all this stance dancing and seal swapping away from all of these other classes. Turn Evil has been removed. This is going the same way as like Soothe and Soothe for druids and remove curses for mages. Just Turn Evil is kind of part of a Paladin spec, but for the most part, the CCs that basically only affected like 1 or 2 NPCs, etc., Blizzard is removed from the game. I'm not really worried about this. I have no problem with this. So that is now gone. Word of Glory is now gone. It's actually now only available as a, I believe, regular talent for Retribution Paladins. So it's been completely cut out of the game. But Word of the Glory Word of Glory was entirely dependent on the whole I can't even think of it. I'm thinking artifact power in my head. Holy power. It was entirely dependent on the holy power system, and that's now out of the game for Protection Paladin. So they basically said, nah, there's no reason for you to have Word of Glory anymore. It's gone. Resolve, it's been removed across all tanks all across the board. I can't remember what Resolve was originally intended to. I remember it was like the solution to help out tanks, and basically now there's like that. We don't need that solution anymore, and so Resolve's been removed from all tanks. Sacred Duty and Shining Protector both have been removed. Any type of stat buff baseline, dealing with secondary stats or so forth, those have all been removed as well, which is a welcome change. I didn't like the whole nudge nudge. This is your best secondary stat. You should be able to choose your playstyle, and that is what they're basically allowing you to do. With that being said, let's go ahead and look at the changed abilities for a Protection Paladin. The first is going to be Ardent Defender. It now lasts 8 seconds, down from 10 seconds. So a little bit of a nerf there on Ardent Defender. It's on a really small cooldown. So, this contrasts... So, I need to point this out right here. This contrasts all of the other specs in the game. All of the other tank specs in the game that dealt with like all of their cooldowns have been increased drastically. I mean, we're talking from like 3 minutes to 10 minutes. Huge increases in their cooldowns. And it's because Blizzard really wants you to pay attention when you need to use your cooldowns. Paladin seems to be exception. And that may be part of the fact that they don't have, another resource to deal with. Their main resource is going to be cooldowns. And so that is why they're able to retain some of this here, which is pretty cool. So Ardent Defender now lasts 8 seconds, down from 10 seconds, so they're nerfing how often you'll be able to use it. And it reduces all damage taken by 20%, so it's a big kind of defensive cooldown. And basically, it's there for, it's another cooldown that you're going to have. And I think as we go through this and you see, there will be some that had their cooldowns increased, but where a lot of other classes basically only have like 1 or 2 big cooldowns, and when I say big cooldowns, I mean like 1 minute or larger. Protection Paladin has several, and that likely is to the fact that their resource is mainly dealing with cooldowns. So, Ardent Defender, there you go. Look at that spell visual, really awesome. There's your Ardent Defender, really cool. Avenger's Shield now only hits, if I get this right, it now hits 3 targets total. Hurls your shield at an enemy, and then jumping to 2 additional nearby enemies. So that shouldn't change at all, but the main thing that you need to know is that it no longer costs mana. Anything that Blizzard felt did not need to cost mana anymore, they've removed the mana cost for it. They felt if it was core to your abilities, we'll remove the mana cost, and then if it was something that they didn't want you using too often, maybe like a heal of sorts, that's when they'll be like, okay, nah, we're going to make this one cost mana, and it's going to really cost mana. So, Avengers Shield no longer costs mana, you just launch it, and there you go from there. Definitely nice holy damage there on top of it. Hands, before we get into the next 3 changes, all hands have been renamed Blessings. So this used to be the way it was. It used to be Blessing of Freedom, so to say, for an example. And then they changed it to Hand of Freedom for some reason for a certain amount of time. And so you had to deal with that. And then now they're like, okay, we're going to make it back to Blessings. The other major change for these now called Blessings is that it's no longer restricted to just one target. You can now have multiple blessings on a target at a time. So I can go ahead and put both, put Blessing of Freedom and Blessing of Protection on myself at the same time. Pretty cool. Basically, they've said, you know what, no, we're now going to allow you to use these all at the same time, and you can have as many as you want on a target. So I'm perfectly happy with that change. I think it's much better, and I think it's kind of better the way they've done it this way. And I haven't mentioned it on here on my little sheet that I'm looking through, that I have all the marks on here, but it used to be called Hand of Salvation, now it's called Blessing of Salvation, and you can see right there, I can use it right now, and it's still intact. So just got rid of the hand portion of all of it, changed it to Blessing, and then it's no longer restricted to one blessing per target. You can have as many on your target as you would like. Now, in terms of each individual blessing, Blessing of Freedom now lasts 8 seconds, up from 6 seconds, so there's a buff there for that. Blessing of Protection, you can now attack during the blessing. I wish I'd showed this to you before I sent it on its really long cooldown, but basically, Blessing of Protection now will last, you can put it on yourself, and then at the same time, you can still attack now in the middle of having the blessing on you, as opposed to before, whereas you could not attack. You were basically locked out. You couldn't do anything. That is no longer the case. Now you can go ahead and use Blessing of Protection, and you can still attack at the same time. When it comes back up, we'll show it off again just for fun, but that is the change to it. Blessing of Sacrifice. So this is a pretty big change here. I can't even use it unless it's semi-party. So unfortunately I can't show this to you. But first off, know that the cooldown has been reduced from 2 minutes to 1.5 minutes. So that's the first change with Blessing of Sacrifice, is that its cooldown has been reduced from 2 minutes to 1.5 minutes. The second change, it's no longer, I'm going to put both these changes together actually. It's no longer limited to 100% of the target player health, and the player cannot drop below 20% health. What does that mean? So, reading off the ability, places a blessing on a party or raid member, transferring 30% of damage taken to you for 12 seconds or until transferred health would cause you to fall below 20% health. So, the old way was places a blessing on a party target raid member, transferring 30% of the damage to you for 12 seconds up until taking 100% of your maximum health. That was the old version. So, basically, it had 2 conditions for ending. Either the 12 seconds, or you would reach 100% of your maximum health. The new 2 conditions for ending are either 12 seconds, or you yourself drop below 20% of health. If you manage to keep your own personal health in between 20% and 100%, you can transfer 30% of damage for the full 12 seconds, even if it goes way beyond 100% of your health. So if 100% of my health is 2 million, okay, let's just say that I'm able to deflect 5 million damage through this. And I'm able to do that so long as I was able to keep my health bar above 20%. So I think it's a change that's for the better. It's going to get more use out of it, and I think it just ends up it ends up being a better buff for the Protection Paladin, as opposed to the way it used to be, where you can only get 100% of your own health out of it, and then it was over. That is all the blessings. Next, let's look at Consecration. Consecration no longer costs mana. However, I do need to show you Consecration because its new spell visual is epic. And I'm sure you will see it a lot from Paladins. And it actually has a lot to deal with Paladins overall and their AoE threat, etc. So, I'm going to use this here. You're going to see just how cool it is. Hammer drops out of the sky. And then you start ticking for holy damage to everyone. So that's pretty cool. Next, we have Guardian of Ancient Kings. Its cooldown has been increased from 3 minutes to 5 minutes, so in line with all of the other changes to tanks, basically increasing their tank cooldowns from 3 minutes up to the 5-minute mark or so. Blizzard wants you to really think when you use these cooldowns. Now, for most of the other classes, like Survival Instincts or Shield Wall, where they have like 4-minute cooldowns now, that's basically their big cooldown. Whereas a Paladin has tons of big cooldowns to mess around with. So it sucks getting these nerfs from 3 minutes to 5 minutes, but at the same time you've got so many of these so many of these massive 5-minute cooldowns that it ends up, being a benefit over time. Just to show you once again the changes to Blessing and Protection, the fact that I can attack, I now have this on a 5-minute cooldown, and I can cast it on myself, and then I can still attack and deal damage and so forth, just as I have in the past. So that's pretty cool, and I'm glad that they've changed things that direction and so forth. So Guardian of the Ancient Kings, cooldown increased from 3 minutes to 5 minutes, and as a spell visual change as well. Before, this Guardian would pop out and would protect you. Now you basically become the Guardian, and you're able to jump around like this. Like Avenging Wrath used to be awesome, but this is even cooler. So I really do like that change. When you see that pop, get out of the way. Get away from this guy, because he's not going to be taking any damage whatsoever. Hammer of Justice has had a beautiful spell visual change. Still functions the same though, so let me just pull it out. I don't have it on my bars anywhere. So let me pull out Hammer of Justice, just so you can see the excellent new spell visual on it. Once again, Blizzard really likes with Paladins these hammers dropping out of the sky, so here we go. As you can see right there, just launch it into the target with the stun. Really awesome. Hammer of the Righteous. So, this is where Crusader Strike was basically just kind of shuffled into. It no longer generates holy power, which is, kind of what we expect out of WoW. I was literally in sync with this gully right next to me in our kind of swaying back and forth instant. That freaked me out, looking both at my recording on the right-hand side and what I was doing on screen. So, back to Hammer of the Righteous. It's single target. It is no longer generates holy power, which, holy power is gone for a protection paladin, so that's no big deal. It's single target instead of AoE base. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go ahead and use it. It still has the same cooldown, but it's got a single target. So single target use out of it. However, well, before we get to that, let's just say it no longer costs mana. So same thing with Consecration, all of the other abilities that are kind of core to a prop paladin's attack rotation, Avenger Shield, you name it, no longer costs any mana. The big change here is that it can become AoE based when standing in Consecration. So this is going to start playing into the theme of holy power, not the resource, but the actual thematic element of holy power, the element of holy light protecting the paladin, and enhancing other abilities comes into play. So this is where holy power enhancing other abilities comes into play. I'm going to use Consecration, which is basically consecrating the earth underneath me with a whole bunch of holy power. And now that that is consecrated, I can use this, and it will now deal AoE damage with my Hammer of the Righteous. So great. I really do like how that's what they're doing, is they're basically causing Consecration and some interaction between these abilities to change them and make them different. And that's one of the... I would say Holy Paladins are going to be... Holy Paladins. Protection Paladins are going to be one of the tanks that are much better at AoE threat than others. And part of that comes from Avenger Shield, Consecration, Hammer of the Righteous combo, all built into it. So, as you can see right there, it actually it fluctuates out from the target as opposed from me. So there's a change there. Before, you would use Hammer the Righteous and it would like emanate from yourself. Now it's different, and it's kind of hard to see because the Holy Power visual is so insane. The Consecration visual is so insane. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to use it, and you're going to see it's kind of a second delay before it appears. But when I use it, you'll see it emanate from the target and hit this target on the right. And if I do it normally here, it doesn't do it. But when I have Consecration down, I will hit the target, and then you'll see it emanate, and it will hit this target on the right-hand side here. So that is how it has changed. There's a little bit of a second of delay, and then from the target it will emanate. I'm not sure how far away it is. It looks like it's 8 yards, so it's got an 8-yard radius on it, but otherwise Consecration plus Hammer of the Righteous gives you a lot of AoE threat pretty quickly, and allow you to consistently deal AoE damage. I mean, when you think about it, Consecrate actually lasts for 11.3 seconds, so you can put a Consecrate down and then use your Hammer of the Righteous, and you can put down another Consecration before the other one even comes up, and then you have double Consecrations on the ground for at least 3 seconds. So that's really nice additive there for it to, to be in the game. I think that actually comes from the artifact weaponry. We'll get to that later in the video, but a lot of AoE threat generation for a Holy Paladin. I think it will be one of the AoE tanks in World of Warcraft Legion. If you haven't heard me talk about it in the previous tank videos, basically I feel that Blizzard, some tanks are going to be better at AoE, some are going to be better at single target, like a Protection Warrior, the last video, their AoE threat generation really stinks, whereas a Guardian Druid is actually pretty successful. Protection Paladin, I think, will be another one that's pretty successful, and this is one of the reasons why, is they're basically always able to keep a constant AoE threat generation around them. With that being said, let's move to the next ability, which will be Reckoning. It's been renamed Hand of Reckoning. Not sure why. I always thought it was originally Hand of Reckoning, but it actually was only called Reckoning, so it's been renamed Hand of Reckoning. That is your taunt, in case you've forgotten, so it is there. Judgment no longer generates holy power. It will now reduce the cooldown of Avenger's Shield by 1 second, 2 if it's a critical hit. This is one of those... this is one of the elements that's actually playing off of a Brewmaster, which we'll get into the next video. But as I said, Paladins kind of take from a lot of the different specs and meld them all into one, and then the overall arcing theme of it being that Holy Power, the Holy Light will enhance your defensive capabilities. But the whole idea of using an ability to reduce the cooldown on something like Avenger's Shield is kind of coming from Brewmasters. But we won't go too far into that, but just know that Judgment will reduce the cooldown on Avenger's Shield by 1 second, 2 if it's critical, and it also no longer costs mana. You just go ahead and throw it out there and deals damage. And you saw that wonderful spell visual. I think they did a great job with the spell visual on this, so you can see it one more time. There we go. I chucked my hammer, and there we go. Redemption, small change here. Cast time increased by approximately 0.25 seconds. This is the same across all classes that have basically a single target res, and its cast time's been increased slightly. Shield of the Righteousness. So a lot of changes here. First off, it no longer costs holy power because there's no reason for it to cost holy power anymore. Its cooldown has been increased from 1.46 seconds, that's what it has on my live client, to 15.1 seconds. So a large nerf in its cooldown. It now has 3 charges though. That is a difference from before. It now has 3 charges as opposed to just, the 1. The cooldown is increased because before you actually had to have holy power to get a full, 3 stacks of Shield of Righteousness, which ended up making it, at least have, at the very least, something like a 3-second cooldown. Now it's 15 seconds, and you have to really pay attention. However, you have a 15 seconds per recharge, and remember, it lasts for 4.5 seconds, and if there's 3 charges, you basically will have one up every 5 seconds, so you kind of can have it up almost constantly all the time. It makes it seem kind of like an upkeep, which really kind of irritates me, but for the most part, that's pretty cool. Now, You may have already seen this from the tooltip, but it is amplified while standing in your consecration. Shield of righteousness. Shield of righteousness. Oh my gosh. the plural of that is insane. The shield of righteousness effects are increased by 20% while in a consecration. So if I use consecration and then I use shield of righteous, the effects will be increased. That means your damage, that means the reduction of damage, it's all been increased. As you can see, when I jump in and out, the tooltip actually actively changes. If you can see down in the right hand corner, you may have to open the video up to large full screen to see this, but I will start it here, and right now at 210 damage, it'll get rid of 180, and it will reduce damage by 42%, and it'll cause 180. When I jump out, it does 150 damage, and it only reduces it by 35%. So, once again, holy power, or the holy light, infusing your defensive capabilities and making them stronger, that is what is going to happen. Now, I'm not sure if this doubles with a double consecration, so now I have to actually find this out for myself. So right now we're sitting at 180 and 42%. I'm going to pop another consecration. I'll have 3 seconds to see whether or not this is true or not. Double consecration, no. Just one consecration will increase it by 20%. It does not stack. That would be really cool. Some interesting gameplay styles if you were able to do something with double consecrations, but I can probably see how that would be annoying. Other changes for Shield of Righteousness, or is it, yeah, it's Shield of the Righteous, not Shield of Righteousness. I don't know why I was calling it Shield of Righteousness. That's what I had it written down for some reason on my list of things to talk about. It's actually Shield of the Righteous. It now lasts 4.5 seconds, up from 3 seconds, so it changed there. And it no longer interacts with Word of Glory, the whole Bastion of Glory buff and so forth. That's all been taken out, mostly because Word of Glory is gone. So that no longer is in existence. It's all gone. Basically, just your flat damage, debuff or buff, your damage reduction debuff, lots of damage out to the target, and at the same time, it can be increased by your consecration. That's really cool. Grand Crusader. This was basically the resetting of the proc on your Avenger Shield. It no longer works with Crusader Strike. Well, Crusader Strike's gone, so whoop-de-doo. The chance to proc Avenger Shield has actually been dropped from 30% down to 15%, and it no longer allows Avenging Shield to generate Holy Power, which you don't need anymore because it's, well, Avenger Shield, Holy Power no longer exists. So it's basically, it just... whenever you avoid a melee attack or you use Hammer of the Righteous, you have a 15% chance to reset the cooldown on Avenger Shield, which I love having lots of Avenger Shields being thrown out all over the place. It's pretty awesome. Forbearance, this is a baseline change from one of the enhancements in Warlords of Draenor. It's now 30-second baseline now, down from 1 minute. I believe it was originally 1 minute of the Forbearance. I could be wrong on that. But it's 30 seconds baseline now. If it was originally 30 seconds baseline now, ignore what I say. But that is one of the changes, if that is a change. That is for Protection Paladins. Just know that Forbearance is a full 30 seconds now, as opposed to what it is before. If it was already like that, then just leave it as is and ignore what I said right there. Mastery, Divine Bulwark. It no longer interacts with Bastion of Glory. Once again, Bastion of Glory has been removed, as it was a buff that was kind of through a Shield of Righteousness, which interacted with Word of Glory. That's all gone now. So now Mastery Divine Bulwark just increases the damage reduction from Shield of Righteous by 6% and increases your chance to block melee attacks by 13%. Simple as that. So, that is everything for the changed abilities for Protection Paladin. That was actually a lot to go through. Now we can go through the new abilities. I've already talked to you about Cleanse Toxins. Really nothing special here. Cleanse Toxins, really pretty nice. Swirl around me. There we go. This is the best one. It's called Divine Steed. I love this. Summon your holy mount to ride for 3 seconds, increasing movement speed by 100%, usable while indoors or in combat. This is so cool. It's like a charge for paladins. This is a talented ability. You can talent into this for other specs, but this is baseline for protection paladin. So it's really cool. I can just launch my steed out here and my shield in front of me, and I can still actually even attack in the middle of that, which is really cool, and I love it. The last new ability for a protection paladin is going to be Light of the Protector. So 14-second cooldown calls down the light to heal you for 25% of your missing health. While you are standing in consecration, Light of the Protector's healing is increased by 20%. So, really cool once again. I can heal myself right there, but I'm not going to get any heal out of it. So it's just going to be like, whatever. But if I were to put down a Consecrate, and then I were to use Light of the Protector again, it would be increased by 20%. So once again, playing into the role of Holy Power increases your defensive abilities as a Protection Paladin. Really cool. A lot of playing around Consecration here, so I'd imagine in my personal opinion, a lot of talents in the tree that would buff Consecration would be more of my favorite, but we will get into that in the next video. For this video specifically, we want to get into the artifact weapon and see what that brings for Protection Paladins. So first we're going to the Protection Paladin artifact ability, which is going to be called the Eye of Tyr. It releases a blinding flash from Truth Guard, which is the name of the shield, causing 103,000 holy damage to all nearby enemies, and reducing all damage they deal to you by 25% for 9 seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and use this here, and there you go. It's a burst of light, reduces their damage. You can see the debuff on them, dealing 25% less damage to the paladin. It's a great kind of small buff. I mean, when you think about it, I talked about how all of the other tanks have lost their abilities, their specs, everything, to all of their defensive cooldowns. They now have damage mitigation cooldowns more along the lines of Shield of the Righteous. And then without that, they basically, all of their long cooldowns have been hit really hard. When you think about a Protection Paladin, their main resource is basically cooldowns, and you can see that in the 15-second recharge on Shield of the Righteous, you know, Consecration having an 8-second cooldown, Light of the Protector a 14-second cooldown. So they have to manage their cooldowns very well and be very careful when they use abilities to become as efficient as possible at mitigating damage. With that being said, they still have Lay on Hands, they still have Divine Shield, they now have Blessing of Protection, which you can now attack in the middle of now, Blessing of Salvation if they need to use it. They still have Avenging Wrath, damage and healing that can boost your healing out of Light of the Protector, and they have Ardent Defender and Guardian of Kings. So they have an absurd amount of defensive protections that the other classes can't even hope to claim of having. So that is basically one of the big differences between a Protection Paladin from all the others. They use the Holy Light to enhance their defensive capabilities, and then they have a lot of protective cooldowns. One of those being Eye of Tyr. So, now that we've seen Eye of Tyr, a little bit of sidetrack there, getting into the theme of the Paladin, let's look at the rest of the artifact weapon for Truth Guard. So it starts right here in the middle, so we'll build out from here. We're going to go down here, and we have Truth Guard's Light. Increases holy damage dealt by 5%. Straight, damage buff there. 5% damage buff. We have Scatter the Shadows, increases the healing done by Light of the Protector by 30%, 3 ranks, 10% per rank. If you've already forgotten Light of Protector, that's your new ability that heals you right there. That's really nice. We have a Sacrifice of the Just, reduces the cooldown on Blessing of Sacrifice by 60 seconds. So Blessing of Sacrifice is actually a 2.5 minute cooldown, been brought down to 1.5 minute cooldown. So a big chunk down there in terms of a cooldown reduction. We have Faith's Armor, increases your armor by 30% when you drop underneath 40% health. 3 ranks there. I'm guessing that's going to be, the 40% health will be static, so it'll be 10% extra armor per rank for 3 ranks there. So you have a little bit of an armor upgrade there, that kind of drawing from Protection Warrior a little bit. We have a Righteous Crusader, increases the damage dealt by Shield of the Righteous by 9%. And Shield of the Righteous reduces damage you take by an additional 3%. I'm going to guess with 3 ranks that this actually affects both, so it'll be 3% extra damage dealt by Shield of the Righteous for each rank, and 1% damage reduction for Shield of the Righteous for each rank. So 3 and 1 for each one of those ranks for 3 ranks. Moving around the inner circle here, we have Hammer Time. Increases the damage done by Hammer of the Righteous and Blessed Hammer by 15%. So that'll be 5% per rank, 3 rank there. Let me pull this up just to make sure that I'm not misleading you. Yes, Blessed Hammer is something that we'll see in the talent tree. It's very surprising for it to actually show up in the artifact weapon tree. Usually it just kind of like replaces the wording depending on which one you have active. I don't have Blessed Hammer active at the moment, so we'll get into that in the next video when we talk about the talent trees. But it is an option to actually replace Hammer of the Righteous if you would like so. But 3 ranks, 5% per rank, increases the damage on those. The third option here is, well, moving around the small inner circle here, the third option on the small inner circle is going to be Unflinching Defense. Reduces the cooldown of Ardent Defender by 30 seconds. So you're going to have 10 seconds per rank, 3 ranks here, bringing it all the way down to 1.5 minutes. So it used to be 2 minutes, now it's brought all the way down to 1.5 minutes. Now let's take a look at the outer circle. We have a Light of the Titans. Light of the Protector will also heal you for 117,000 over 15 seconds. 117,000 is like 0.5% of my health. Sorry, not 0.5% of my health, 5% of my health. So it's an extra 5% of my health in healing. We'll go ahead and use it again. And you can't really see it, but it actually is in the top right-hand corner. Light of the Titans, healing for 117,000 over 15 seconds. And that's through the entire course of basically the cooldown of Light of the Protector. So, I mean, we'll use it right again, and we'll see it just kind of knocks back up straight all the way up to max. It doesn't, double up on each other. It doesn't stack. It just refreshes it. We have Bastion of Truth, increases block chance by 6%, 3 ranks, that'll be 2% per rank. We have a Forbearant Faithful. Each act of forbearance you have caused increases the cooldown recovery rate of all your forbearance causing abilities by 50%. So this is, oh man, I don't even know of a good way to actually show this off. Let's actually try this here. Let's start causing forbearance, and then we'll see if the cooldown begins to tick quicker for these abilities. We have this, we have Divine Shield and Lay on Hands that will all be reduced. So right now, as you can see, now that I've cast forbearance, you can see that the cooldown for Divine Shield is now 3.75 minutes, and Lay on Hands has been knocked all the way down to 7.5 minutes. So that's actually a huge increase in recovering rate there. So let's use Divine Shield now, and that has been reduced as well. So I think it's a bug maybe that it's supposed to be down that low, but it's already at 4 minutes cooldowns as opposed to a 5-minute cooldown, which it would say 5-minute cooldown until it hit the 4-minute mark, and then it would go down. So we do know that it's working now. And that's for each successive ability. So if you pay attention to which ability you use first, maybe you want Blessing of Protection to be off cooldown quicker or something like that, you can pay attention to that and change it from there. So this one has an 8-minute cooldown now. So it does look like it's static maybe, I'm not quite sure, but that's a pretty cool change in what they've done now. They've kind of changed it up how quickly you can get your abilities that cause forbearance off of cooldown as quickly as possible. So that's really awesome to have there. That's a really awesome talent, and I expect people probably will want to pick that one up pretty quickly. We have Stern Judgment, increases the critical strike chance of judgment by 10%. That'll be 3, 7, and 10, or 3, 6, and 10, either way. 3 ranks there, all the way up to 10%. The next epic portrait we have is Tears Enforcer. The knowledge of the Watchers causes Truthguard to deal 12,000 damage to all enemies within 5 yards of each target hit by Avenger's Shield. So you have even more AoE threat generation basically with this. As you can see, Tears Enforcer actually showed up on here, dealing 12,000 damage. So you're going to be able to get a ton of AoE threat as a Holy Paladin, in my opinion. It's going to be one of the best in terms of AoE threat generation Probably at this moment I would say the best. Better than a Guardian Druid and better than these others. Brewmasters, as you'll see in the next video, series, you'll see we'll have some be able to bring back their statues to be able to do some pretty good taunts. But for the most part, this is the best AoE threat I've seen in the game. I have not done my write-up for Blood DKs yet, so that could be better. But this is still, in my opinion, probably one of the best AoE threat generating tanks out there. Here we have Consecration and Flame. Increases the duration of Consecration by 3 seconds. That'll be 3 ranks, 1 second per rank. As I said, this is likely where this allows me to overlap my Consecrations, which provides for even more AoE threat generation. Being able to overlap them on top of one another. I'll stand still and you can see now it's really glowing yellow, and you can see it die away right there as the first one goes away, so that's pretty cool. We have Painful Truths. While Ardent Defender is active, all melee attacks that strike you deal 27,000 holy damage back to the attacker. So a little bit of retribution aura there. That's pretty cool. It's only 1 rank, so you get it right off the bat. And then we have Resolve of Truth. Increases the maximum health by 3%. We got 1% per rank there for 3 ranks for a total of 3%. And then lastly, our last epic portrait here is going to be Bulwark of Order. Avenger's Shield also shields you for 8 seconds, absorbing 20% as much damage as it dealt. So this is really cool. We're going to go ahead and use this here. I hit both, it comes back to me, and I'm able to absorb 66,000 damage because it absorbs 20% of the damage dealt, and I dealt about 300,000 damage. 300,000 damage, 20% equals around 60,000, if I did my math correctly, would equal about 60,000. I wish I had a spot where I could hit more training dummies, but this is basically the only spot I can. So that's actually pretty cool. More defensive capabilities out of your Avenger's Shield. That gives it some defensive options. And then, of course, you have the AoE threat generated out of it, which is really awesome. With that, that's everything for a Protection Paladin in World of Warcraft Legion. Basically, as I mentioned before, they've kind of taken a little bit from each one of the different tank specs, but for the most part, their encompassing theme is basically lots of cooldown-esque abilities, and on top of that, managing your cooldowns for maximum damage reduction, damage reduction efficiency, and then using the Holy Light with Consecration to enhance your defensive prowess and further increase your efficiency in damage reduction as a tank. So, pretty cool options here as a Protection Paladin. I'm really glad that they're kind of interacting these abilities all with one another. I think it's really fun to play around with. So, with that, that's everything for a Protection Paladin in terms of their abilities and their artifact weapon. In the next video, we will look at the PvE and PvP talents coming to a Protection Paladin in World of Warcraft Legion. That is it from the Sanctum of Light. This is Tearless, and I'll see you guys later. Tearless out.